This episode felt very long. It's not the worst episode, but it had the most individual things wrong with it. I have so much to say, and I just... One thing that I think is at least interesting about In Another World with My Smartphone is that it is very content being a slice of life story. This episode feels less like a singular narrative, and more like a series of tiny skits, loosely connected by continuity. There are 5 individual stories within this episode, and all of them make me want to gouge my eyes out for different reasons. The first is just a fan service scene, which I will not be showing much of because Yumina is 12, but I just want to point out that even while the girls are yelling at him for barging into the bathroom without knocking, he's actively leering at them and enjoying the sights. I already went on a rant about this for episode 5, but I still hate it. Refer back to that. I can't go into more detail on this because I've run out of B-roll. Our next plot involves Toya using null magic to turn raw materials into bicycles. It starts with the Duke discovering the joys of riding a bike, and it's actually kind of fun. Seeing this middle-aged man fail to ride a bike and yet yell at his servant when he tries to help him because he intends to tame this steed on his own, it's just awesome. The issues come in when everyone else finds the bikes. The girls all try it out, and Yumina is the first to master it, which she uses as an excuse to show off to Toya and flirt with him. The other girls then get jealous and begin competing to see who can do it the best to show off to Toya. Now, there are 2 issues with this development. In the short term, the problem is that this takes away from the scene. Isekais are usually fish out of water shows where the protagonist is the fish out of water. Here we get the chance to put other characters into that same position, dealing with something unusual, novel, and exciting. This is why it's fun to watch the Duke. However, when the girls get their hands on these bikes, it's not used as a way of exploring their characters and seeing what happens when they are put into a novel situation. It is, instead, used to do the same thing we've been doing for a while now, having them fight for Toya's affection. All of the charm just gets sucked out of the scene until the Duke comes back into it. The second problem is, and maybe this is just a me thing, but I am not a fan of going down this direction with what is meant to be leading up to a harem ending. Like, I get it, having girls fight over you is a fantasy for a lot of guys, but that's not what the show has set me up to expect. The show has been setting me up to expect an ending where Toya has 18 wives, and while I think that is a little bit cringe culture is dead. There are absolutely better and worse ways to handle a story like this. But the key thing here is that a harem ending is an ending where he ends up with everyone at the same time. So what the story should be setting up is a kind of healthy polyamory. However, there has been an ever-growing sense of desperation and competition between the girls, with them feeling there is something real at stake with who gets to be the one to show off the most to Toya. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was in a relationship with more than one girl, I'd like to, not have that relationship cause tension between the girls. Friendly rivalry? Sure, I guess, but, there's something about this whole scene that just feels kind of ominous. The girls all know that they are competing for Toya, but there's something to the way they do it which can only realistically lead to conflict and toxicity. However, it probably won't, and that's because these girls aren't real characters. Any story that took this dynamic seriously would inevitably have to come to terms with how this status quo is not for the best. Like, let's take this seriously as a love story. Let's pretend that the author is actually trying, that this is a story he wants to tell, and it's not just a collage of random tropes which are independently gratifying but lacking in any real synergy. The author has been making attempts at creating enjoyable ship dynamics between Toya and the girls, but a relationship where he is married to all of them and where all of them live together will mean that the dynamics between the girls is also important to develop. Even if the girls don't form romantic feelings for each other, they will still need to form a family dynamic, but that process of forming one isn't really being taken. If anything, we're backtracking. They went from good friends to good friends kind of at odds with each other when it comes to Toya. If this conflict was leading to drama that would induce character growth, then yeah, sure, I can see how that'd be a compelling idea, but can you even imagine this story having a plotline centered around 2 of the girls and them mending the gaps in their friendship that Toya caused? That's not about Toya being cool and awesome. Why would they do that? Oh god, we're only like 7 minutes into the episode. The next plotline involves the introduction of a new character. Toya is out in the town and spots a young kid, looking about Sushi or Yumina's age, getting cornered by some thugs, and given that they're wearing a Blair Flanagan hat, you can probably guess where this is going. The kid was involved in some crime with these guys, and said thugs are about to punish them for screwing up the operation. Toya comes in and shoots them with rubber bullets to stop them, which I think is a nice reincorporation of the gun he just made. Adds to the lore of him, if you get what I mean. This is a good thing to do for your protagonist. Anyways, after rescuing the kid, their hat is removed, revealing that they have long hair and are therefore a female. Sorry, Lins, but given the fact that you have short hair, it appears that you are biologically male. If you want to be a proper woman, you're going to need to grow that hair out. Now that's what I call top surgery. I'm sorry. Anyways, after a bit of bonding, Toya offers to give this kid a job as a maid at his mansion. We then get a scene where she is in a maid uniform and the butler instructs her on the proper way to address Toya, which is danna-sama, which is a phrase that some of the weebier people in the audience might recognize because it is a word that often comes up in anime whenever there is a maid, and maids are also something that comes up a lot in Japan because it's a common fetish there. We've seen maids in a number of the stories that we have covered on this channel, and one of them even included this honorific, danna-sama. Danna-sama and goshujin-sama are two titles often used as translations for the word master, and are things people pretending to be maids will often say. Given that this child is being put into a potentially fetishized situation within a story that is already fine with objectifying young people, and it is my job to make fun of this show as much as possible, I wanted to know just how bad it was that she was being instructed to say this. So I did a bit of Googling, and I actually learned a lot about the Meido Tai Shujin Kosho Ronso, which translates to the maid versus master title controversy. Why do I know that? Because the first thing I found on Google when trying to figure out the distinctions between these translations was, I kid you not, a 4,500 character Google Groups post from 2005 for a maid fetishism group in which someone has a shockingly in-depth discussion about which translation is more erotic. Within this essay, that is better researched and better cited than the final paper I recently turned in for my Intro to Psych class, complete with in-paragraph citations, the author analyzes a variety of different viewpoints from, different people in the field? Like, good for these guys. I'm glad they're having fun, but I am losing my grip on reality. Within this post, they discuss the etymological origins of the different terms, as well as the differences between a master and a dominus, a word I didn't know existed, and how they respectively pertain to a body connection and a soul connection. I could do more research, but I feel my cold symptoms returning just typing this out, so I think I'm going to say that it's maybe, just maybe, a little bit sussy that this author who definitely reads maid doujins and definitely has an opinion on the danna-sama versus goshujin-sama debate, decided to put a prepubescent child into a maid uniform and have a scene of said kid being instructed to call the self-insert danna-sama. Save me, Chainsaw Man! Okay, next scene. The next thing that happens is a little comedy scene where Toya and three 12-year-old girls— The next thing that happens is that these four are peeping on the knight and his crush as they go on a date. I can't be asked to remember their names. One of these girls is the little sister of Olga. That's the girl's name. Anyways, Olga's sister is among the children encircling Toya this afternoon, and she is intent on spying on the date, and Toya reluctantly helps her do so. During this, we see various snippets of Olga going on a variety of out-of-context ramblings, with her date always just smiling and nodding at the random stuff she's ranting about, and I swear to God, we are this close to actually having these two be cute together.
So at this point, there is no one left except the tortoise and the hare. They're partial to bananas, you see.
Yeah.
All you need to do is have Olga's sister make a comment about how Olga rambles too much, and then follow it up with a comedic subversion of the night guy actually liking that part of her, in spite of it initially coming off as a flaw. This is basic rom-com storytelling. Give one of them a flaw that the other finds endearing, or give them something they share in common, or something they both like talking about, or make them order the same thing at the restaurant, or something. I am begging you to put in the least amount of effort. But no, the sister just comments on how well the date is going.
Sis likes him. I can tell. I think those two have excellent chemistry.
Do they? At a later point, the date peepers run into the king, who decides to join Toya because why not? The knight is being all nervous about initiating a handhold, for which the peanut gallery scold him, but then someone is in trouble and the knight goes in to try and help him, except he doesn't actually do anything. Instead, Toya jumps in with the king to take out the bad guys, but luckily it was still enough on the knight's part to impress Olga. She just likes that he jumped in. But regardless, there is a pretty big issue here that you've probably picked up on because it's the same issue as always. This was the knight's big moment. You know, he's a character, and this was a big moment for him within the narrative, with the little screen time he has. But Toya jumped in to take the spotlight for himself. The author has the girls point out what the knight did and how it was gallant, but because the narrative cannot let Toya be upstaged in any capacity, they need him to jump in as well and be the one doing the upstaging. You could frame this as power fantasies are bad, but that is, in my opinion, a fairly shallow critique. Yes, it's true. If the author wasn't obsessed with making Toya always the center of attention, then this scene would have been improved by giving the knight room within the narrative to assert himself and properly complete his arc in a way that's satisfying. But that's ignoring the fact that you can do both. Let the knight fight it out and have him get beat up due to being outnumbered, but show how he's determined to do right regardless of how much he's outmatched. Give him a cool moment like that, and then send Toya in because it's necessary. The issue isn't the story the author wants to tell, the issue is that he's uncreative. We then get a scene I somewhat like. Olga and the knight instantly see through the terrible disguises the heroes put on when jumping in to save the day, and call him out for spying on the date. That's a really funny little pseudo-meta joke, a nice little subversion of expectations, as is when Toya asks the knight if he wants to work up the courage to ask Olga out, to which the knight responds, yes, prompting Toya to say, well, good, because she's standing right behind you and heard you say that. And man, Olga really did nothing in that whole thing. You could have replaced her with any character, and this entire interaction would make an equal amount of sense. Have her join in on the heroism, or give her a backstory that indicates that this whole experience would be emotionally affecting to her. God, this whole thing was just so botched.
Hope the boy's up for the task. She's quite a woman.
Is she? Anyways, the last thing that happens is Leen, the fairy queen, coming into Toya's mansion and letting him know that she's the new ambassador from Mizmead, so she'll be a recurring cast member now. She informs Toya that the crystal monster he fought in episode 3 is one of many, basically opening up a new side quest for him to handle. End of episode. This episode was just so much. I am simultaneously looking forward to and dreading the next episode. I hope it's more Crystal Beast and less If you like what I do here, then please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, as it really helps out the channel. I'm applying to grad school to become a social worker and quickly running low on money, so doing what you can to boost this video's metrics is a godsend. If you want to be even cooler and help me make these videos, then you can follow me on Patreon, where you'll get access to my deleted videos, along with sneak peeks at what's coming next on my channel. You will also get to watch my videos a day early, usually on Friday, if you sign up for the second tier. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons, especially my Tier 2 patrons, Bellman, Carolyn Vig, and Love Your Content. You guys are what's keeping me going.